BlxckMonopoly presents Dope Dialogue.
What's good? You're now tuned in to Dope Dialogue presented by BlxckMonopoly. And today we have an equestrian, an author and educator, a founder of a nonprofit known as Saddle Up and Read, a mother, a certified country girl, and more. We can go on and on, but let's get right into it. On this episode, we have Gooch, aka the Black Cowgirl. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
Nice, I'm doing great too. Let's jump right into it. So hit the listeners with a little bit of who you are and what you do.
Oh my goodness. So that introduction was perfect. My name is Gooch. I have been around horses my entire life, like my whole life. I've been around kids my whole life too. And I had my first child when I was 18 years old. I'm almost 30 now, not quite there yet. Not quite in the team 30 yet. But I've had just a lot of experience working with children. My background is in childcare and now working full-time with horses and children, which I absolutely love through my nonprofit, Saddle Up and Read. And Saddle Up and Read is basically, I go out and I encourage kids to read by showing them our horses. That's basically it in a nutshell, but literacy is super important to me. So I do use my horses as an incentive to get our kids to read.
Nice. That's pretty cool. So what was it like growing up on a horse farm? Because I read on your blog that you grew up on a horse farm and you have some great information. So like, what was it like growing up on a horse farm?
So it was so normal. Like you never really know how not normal or not common things are until you talk to other people. So for me, it was like, we wake up, the horses are in the yard. Like one of our horses would literally come on the back porch, like, hey, I know y'all in there, come and feed me. So it was fun for me. I have 4 other siblings. I only have one brother. And I'm the only one that ride horses. Like I'm the only one that's like super attached to horses. My brother, because like in the household, it's always like the boy, he does more things than the girl. He hates horses. He absolutely hates horses because he had to do 10 times more than what I had to do. But I absolutely love it. And, it was a lot of hard work getting up, feeding over 50 horses, making sure that they were okay. Cleaning out stalls is hard work. Fixing fences. One time I accidentally electrocuted my dad because I plugged in a hot wire and didn't tell him that I plugged it in and he grabbed it. So a lot of life lessons, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's pretty cool. Like you touched on a little bit of what I'm about to ask now, but what goes into operating a successful horse farm?
Oh my goodness, a lot. Horses obviously cannot talk, so they can't tell us when something's wrong. And so like just checking and making sure those signs of colic. Colic is something that is common with horses. It just means like they're having some sort of abdominal pain. And sometimes that leads to death. We've lost a couple of horses to colic, just no one being there to catch it. And then just getting up and at random times in the middle of the night because the horse might have got out. That has happened many times. Of course, if you have very structured, like an enclosed pasture, that doesn't happen, but sometimes things happen. Horses break stuff. We had a mule who would literally find a way to get out of anything, and she would let the other horses out in the other pastures. So like, just imagine being comfortable and sleeping in your bed and you get a call. Y'all got some horses out at 2:00 in the morning. So just being really responsible and caring for those animals. But again, I love horses and I loved it. So for me, it's like, yes, it's challenging. It's cold outside. Sometimes it's super hot and I have to change my clothes like 3 times a day, but it is all worth it because they are just beautiful animals and I love being around them.
Got you. And what are signs of colic? Like, how can you tell a horse is going through it?
So if a horse is like pawing at the ground or like they might turn their head either way, trying to get at their stomach, like, hey, something is going on with my stomach. Those are some signs, or laying down and not getting up, or laying down, getting back up frequently, or trying to roll and stuff. So those are some signs of colic. And of course, you can find more on Google. But yeah, looking out for those things. And one thing I forgot to mention when you asked about it being successful, having money is a plus, because we have to pay for feed. We have to pay for quality hay. Horses need 24/7 hay all the time, every day, because they're forage animals. We have to pay for a farrier. So the farrier is someone who comes out and they trim the horse's hooves, or they'll put shoes on them. Then we have to, and that's like every 4 to 6 weeks. We have to pay for, if you don't have a farm, people have to pay board for their stall, like to rent out a stall or rent out a pasture. We have to pay the vet fees for shots and stuff like that. The list goes on and on and on, but it's like a reoccurring expenses. Oh, and the equine dentist. Horses get seen by the dentist. Most of mine get seen once or twice a year, and that's like a 150 calls per horse. So a lot of things go into it. And it's not always just riding. Like every horse we have, we don't have it to ride. Some of them are what we call pasture pups. They just out there, pasture ornaments, making the lawn look nice. Some of them we ended up with because somebody decided, this is too much for me. I don't want this horse anymore. And they never came back. And then some of them, I had my childhood horse up until last July. And I was just using her in my program. And so it wasn't like she was being ridden or anything. When they get to a certain age, it's like either you do or you don't. You figure out what is comfortable for them. So it's just a lot of stuff that goes into it. And I've seen some people, they'll block off like 3 hours in the morning or 2 to 3 hours at night, because we mainly feed horses twice a day, unless they're out on pasture and they have access to hay. They're totally fine. But it's like a 24/7 job, because you never know. Something could go down at any moment.
Got you. So you mentioned also, so it's like a 24/7 job, and it also takes money to upkeep them. How much could you give like an estimate of how much it would cost to maintain one horse like every month?
Per month, one horse per month. I'm gonna say, because without boarding, like we're not gonna include boarding or how much lessons just to take care of it. I'm gonna say like anywhere from $500 to maybe $700 a month. Because it just depends again, like how much the cost of hay is where you are. Because right now, like everything else, hay is increasing. And you need at least one round bill, like those big old bills you might see, when you're driving or whatever. You need one of those per horse per month. That's like a rough estimate. And that is running us like $55 right now. Yeah, so it just depends on how much you willing to spend on feed. And I said 500 just because I'm assuming that, we're just going to calculate that up to budget for other expensive, like the veterinarian and stuff like that.
Got you. So it takes money to keep the horses and maintain them. Do they generate money, or like what's the reasons why people would have a horse if they're not riding them, or, charging people to ride them? How does a horse generate income or some kind of benefit?
Well, there are people, let's think. If they're not riding, so there are people who might do like birthday parties maybe, but not everybody does that, because you got to pay for insurance and all that stuff, and that's more money. Yeah, they're not riding. I can't think of anything else that they would
horses and have them.
Yeah, or unless you are willing to like sell their horse manure, for like compost or something. But horse manure has to sit and has to age, because if you put fresh horse manure on plants, it'll kill it because it's too hot. Like manure is just too hot. So yeah, other than that, I cannot think of any ways. Or if they're training horses, like training them and getting them ready for shows and stuff like that. Oh, that's what it is. People do shows. So like people will go and they'll show a horse. They'll show it based on how it looks, or they could show it based on its breed. Like there's different types of shows that people do, and you can get money that way too. But again, a lot of work goes into all of that.
Got you. So you tend to give a lot of insight on your Instagram page. A post that stood out to me is the red and green flags to look for when horseback riding for the first time. Can you share your top red and green flags?
Yes. So my top red, I'm gonna start with red flags. My top red flags is they do not provide helmets. Helmets are so important. When you're riding a horse, you are up there. Like you are pretty much up there. Like however tall that horse is, when you get on, you add a couple of feet. And so if you're riding, say if you're running and you fall off, that impact is going to be, less or worse, depending on the speed. So if you go to a facility and they don't have helmets as an option, I would turn around because anything could happen. Anything could happen. Like even my dad, he was riding a horse long time ago, before I was even born, I believe. And he fell off and he had to have surgery on his neck, and he did not have on a helmet. So that could have been his life. So that's the first red flag. They don't have helmets. The second red flag is they don't have safe equipment. And I know, like, how, if I've never done this before, how would I know? Well, you can kind of tell when things don't look safe. Like, does it look broken? Does it look like it's about to fall apart? Are they struggling to put things together? Just because when you're riding, say you're out on the trail with someone, what if something were to happen to an instructor and you didn't know what to do? Or what if your stirrup fell off? Or what if the saddle slid too far to one side? Because if you're in a saddle and your feet are in the stirrups and it's sliding, you could slide as well. So just looking at that equipment, and other safety equipment like a mounting block. So there's a step called a mounting block that instructors can put beside a horse, and you can step onto it and then get on the horse instead of getting on from the ground. And not every place has that, but it is a good safety measure just for, like some people who aren't used to riding. That's the only safety things I can think of right now. And then some green flags is that they are very respectable to their horses. They talk kindly to their horses. Don't be going around nobody who's like yelling at their horses and cussing at them and stuff. Don't do that. Because again, everything is energy, and horses, they feed off of energy. So that's a green flag, that they talking, kind and loving to their horses. Another green flag would be they are knowledgeable of the questions that you're asking. Like if you ask a question because you don't know, or whoever is new, and they can't answer it, but you feel like they should probably be able to answer it, if they can answer it, that is definitely a green flag, because you want to be around people who are knowledgeable about horses. I don't have all the answers, but I can give like some general and fact-based answers. So that's definitely a green flag. And after your encounter with them, a green flag is if they follow up with you and give you more resources to learn more about horses, because we really want people to be educated, because now everybody's like, oh, I want to be a cowgirl, I want to be a cowboy. And it's a lot of work, like I know people might look at different pages and be like, oh, that's so nice, but y'all, it is a lot of work.
For sure. And I know this one green flag you had on your page too was being able to tell if a horse is having a good or a bad day. How can you tell if a horse is having a good or a bad day? What signs do you look for?
Oh, so on that one, I remember what you're talking about. So the green flag was that the instructor actually understands horses have good and bad days. So say if I were to go out and get a horse and it's just, like maybe it's acting unnormal, like maybe it's running around, or it's pawing at the ground, or its ears are pinned back. Like most times horses' ears are like this, or they're relaxed. But if its ears are pinned back, or when I go to saddle it, it's just acting totally different. That is okay. And it's just, for us, we need to figure out, okay, what's going on? Are you in pain? Are you sick? Like, do you not just want to do this today? Because that's totally possible. And I know that there are places that they are consistently going out all the time, all day, and the horses are just like whatever, like, and that's not something you want to see because horses have personalities, and it's not like that at every place, but you can kind of just tell, like, does the horse look sad? Because whether you are around horses or not, you can kind of tell if a horse looks sad.
Got you. And all right, so I had to bring this one up because I'm curious. So one of the posts said that you castrate animals. Like, what's the benefit of that procedure? Like, what benefits do they bring?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so a long time ago I went to this farm in Maryland. It's a Black-owned farm, and I was riding like all of his horses, just learning different things and learning how to ride bareback, and I had my helmet on. And he had these piglets, and he was like, "Hey, you want to learn how to castrate an animal?" And I was like, "Okay, cool, sure." And so we did it right there. We just got a clean razor blade and popped its testicles out. And then, I had posted the video of it and people flipped out. So I took it down. But the thing is, right after we did that, that pig went to go try to hump its mama. It was nothing wrong. That pig was not in pain. It was like, oh, okay. And it was trying to get busy already. So the reason why we castrate animals is population control. With horses, the stallions, they cannot be with the mares because they will reproduce. And sometimes some of them, they might like run down the other mares or run down other horses. And because they aren't in the wild, it's just not enough room for them to do that in pastures, or, some people keep their stallions in stalls all day and don't let them out. So it's like all this built up energy along with their testosterone, and you let them out and they go buck wild. So just population control. And sometimes it's like an attitude thing, but it really a temperament thing, but it depends on the horse. I have one stallion. I do not plan to castrate him because he's been pretty level-headed as a stallion. But if he wasn't, we was taking them nuts out.
Gotcha. And is that easy? Is that easy of a process? Like, you don't have to give them any like anesthesia or anything. It's
that
just
is
not.
No. So a veterinarian has to do that, and they will come out and they will do the anesthesia. The horse, I've been present for one of them. So the horse will lay down. And because they're so large, like somebody has to help, like they have to have help. And then they'll make the incision, and they'll just find both testicles and pop them both out. And, you keep it clean. And most times you want to do that during the colder months, because if you do it when it's hot, it's going to attract flies. We do not want that. So most times it's done in the winter months.
Got you. I saw on one of your blog posts, you mentioned that you're looking to buy land and start your own horse farm. I'm not sure if you have already, but like, what's the process look like? Like, what do you look for in the land?
So I have found somewhere already. I'm just gonna stay where I'm at. My parents are actually moving, so I'll be taking over. And I'm really excited about that. So the process for that is finding something that is not going to flood. That's number one, because there's a part in the back of our barn on our land. When it rains, it does flood, and we had built a stall there, so that stall cannot be used. So just looking for like, how does it look, and then looking for the amount of acreage. Like if you have horses and large animals, you want a lot of land. The rule of thumb in North Carolina is 1 horse and 1 to 2 acres of land per horse. And that's just because they graze, so they move around and they eat. They have long legs, they are huge, they need room, and if you have like a horse on something smaller than that, they'll eat it down really fast, and then it'll just make a mess and end up turning it into mud. So just looking for stuff like that, and looking for something, now it's developments everywhere, so it's kind of hard to avoid it. But trying not to be near the highway is always a plus, because again, animals can get out, and you throw in cars in the mix, it just increases the chances of losing those animals. And looking for a place that has trees. Trees are our friends. They are a part of nature. I know there's many places now you go and look and there's trees, and then the landowner might sell the trees. So you might get the land, but they've already cut the trees down. So just make sure that you communicate stuff like that. And there's so many other things like soil tests. And in North Carolina, we have a cooperative extension in Wake County. And I think every county should have one, I believe. But you can send in the soil so they can test it and see like what different minerals and stuff that you have, and if it will be good for growing stuff. I haven't started my garden yet, but I did have one a few years ago, but I do grow food as well. But I'm ramping that up. This year I plan for my family to be eating straight from the garden. So looking at that and just the layout, because again, if you're growing food or if you have animals, being near the road, that's just a chance of more toxic things that can get into the soil, and you don't want that.
For sure. So like what other animals would you have? So you have horses, and when it comes to growing your food and everything, you said like the horse would pasteurize the land and everything. What other animals are conducive to that environment?
Oh, I love this question because I just started looking into permaculture farming. So permaculture farming is basically working with nature and the animals that you have to create this huge system of farming. So I have 2 chicks right now that we had a chicken. She hatched some eggs, which normally doesn't happen in the winter because it's so cold. Like normally that's a springtime thing, but I have them in the house. So eventually I'll put the chickens on like a piece of the land where I'm going to have my garden. And the chickens will eat whatever they're going to eat. Let me back up. I'll put some sheep on it first, let the sheep eat everything down, get the weeds and all that. Then I'll put the chickens and the turkeys on it and they'll eat what's left. And then I'm going to come behind them and put a pig on it so the pig can start tilling and rooting up everything else. And then I'll put chickens on it again, just so they can mix in compost and other like good stuff like that. So in doing that, all it's doing is nurturizing, putting nutrients into the soil for that garden. And so it's like just this huge system with permaculture farming. But right now I have 1 rabbit, and rabbits have what's called cold fertilizer. So his poop can instantly go out into the garden because it doesn't have to age or anything. You can just put it out there and it fertilizes. I have a pig who is staying with one of my friends. So when I get him into the garden, he'll be able to dig up stuff, and make the soil all great and whatnot. There's a few sheep at the barn, and I want to get an alpaca because you can use alpaca's fur. Well, I want to get a couple of them, but you can use their fur to make yarn, and I love to crochet. So just creating this huge system, all the animals working together cohesively.
That's pretty cool. I had no idea like the animals would naturally tend to the land, like, help the soil, pull out weeds, and also help fertilize it. So is it having them all on that land at the same time, or is it kind of like you put the sheep first and then let them do their thing?
It's like a system. So you do the sheep, and then you would do the turkeys, then the pigs, and the chickens. Because what chickens do is they scratch and they actually till the land, like they'll do it for you. And I've also seen where like people will create like a little corral thing. So say if out in the horse pasture during the hot months to manage flies, I could create something in the pasture for the chickens. The chickens will eat up the horse manure. That way they're also eating the flies, so we don't have a bunch of flies everywhere. So just using the animals to make everything work beautifully. That is my goal. And that's what permaculture farming basically is. But I'm new to it. I'm still learning, but I'm really in love with this type of farming.
Got you. And like, what are your sources for learning? Are you learning from past generations of people, or is it kind of like Google, or is it like, how do you learn this information?
YouTube, and past generations of people. My dad actually has, he went to North Carolina A&T. So he actually has a degree in, oh my goodness, agriculture. And he was a farmer. He used to farm soybeans. Like my dad has done some of everything. So I asked him questions. I tap into the ancestors. I asked them, but some of it really, when you're out there, you can kind of see like, okay, when I did this, this happened. When I did this didn't happen. And you kind of learn from that too. So doing that and also asking other farmers for help. Like I know this one farmer on Instagram, she was raising turkeys and I want to raise turkeys. So I messaged her and I was like, hey sis, I need some help. And she sent me like loads of information. So just utilizing that community as well.
Oh, pretty cool. You also looking into your blog posts and everything, you speak about the Yeehaw Agenda. Can you break that down?
Yes. So I did not realize that people were using that phrase, like the Yeehaw Agenda. I don't know if you can see this. In the background is like this huge photo frame. Let me grab it. What in the girl? This girl doing show and tell. So can you see these pictures?
For sure.
Okay, so these are all Black equestrians. And before I was even born, we have a huge community of Black equestrians on the East Coast. And what we have been doing is every weekend from March to November, we actually come together at different Black-owned farms and we do trail rides from Friday to Saturday. And that's been going on since, I believe, the 70s. And so that's what I grew up doing. So when things started changing on social media and it's like, you know, Black equestrianism is a trend, I'm like, this has been my life. Like I've always been around Black equestrians since forever, since the beginning of time. So for me, it's like when I see like the Yeehaw Agenda, sometimes people think, oh, you put on a cowboy hat and that's it. But it's like, no, like we are really out here, y'all. And like we've been out here, you know, and I have a collection of books actually that has every published book with it has Black equestrians, featuring Black equestrians in it. I even made up a book myself. But when I think about the Yeehaw Agenda, what I see mostly, well, now I'm seeing more authentic Black equestrians, but normally I was just seeing like celebrities, you know, because we have celebrities. There's something about R&B and the Yeehaw Agenda. Like if you just look back, Beyonce has done it. I know Sierra has done it, and like the list goes on, but just including that glimpse of Western fashion in media, even Stevie Wonder. So it's just beautiful to me, but I also want more mainstream people to understand that we really have been out here like for a long time.
Got you. So it's not just like putting on the attire, it's actually
right.
The lifestyle, it's a culture, and it's real people who are putting in the work.
Exactly.
Got you. And you also mentioned that you created your own book too, that falls in line with the literature that you have. Touch on that.
Yeah, so this is my coloring book. And the reason I made a coloring book, it's called Color and Learn Black Equestrian Coloring Book, was because as I was collecting the book collection that I have, all of the texts are about this thick. What child is going to read that? Are you even going to read that? Because I'm still getting through them. But it's so many amazing people. Like they are inventors and wow, they're just incredible. And so I was like, how can I make this in a way that's easy to digest? And also keep in mind that 50% of adults are illiterate. So what can I do? So I made a coloring book. I created it. I did everything to this book except for draw the pictures. So in this first one, it's called volume 1 is called The Trailblazers. And I just touch on like 12 Black equestrians in history, like some jockeys, bronco riders, horse trainers, both men and women. And I just have brief bios of each, just saying like who they were when they were alive and what they accomplished. And the illustrations are just so beautiful. Like they are beautiful. Hold on, I'm gonna show you my favorite one.
Cool.
This is one of my favorite ones. I don't know if you know who Mary Fields is, but Mary Fields was the first black woman stagecoach driver in the United States. So long time ago, she got hired, but she had to prove herself first, but she got hired to deliver the US mail, and she was delivering medicine and all of that stuff. And like, she was literally out here fighting off wolves and fighting off outlaws just to deliver the mail. and she could ride horses and she could drive the stagecoach. So it's just stuff like that. I really want more people to, when they think about like American history and Black history, even though they're both the same, I want them to think about equestrians as well, because we aren't brought up. Like, we bring up, you know, like Rosa Parks and the things that she did, Dr. Martin Luther King, the things that he did. But there were also equestrians who are doing great things too. And I think it's important for other people to know about them.
For sure. 100%. And that falls in. So that book and your drive to showcase that falls in with the Saddle Up and Read initiative.
Exactly. So when I go out, so I started Saddle Up and Read in 2017. It was not a nonprofit yet. I was literally just doing this out of kindness of my heart. I was like, yo, I grew up with horses. I love horses. If y'all's children are in the area, come and bring your kids out. Like, I was literally on Facebook like, hey, the sun is shining, bring your kids out to the farm. And, you know, like, I have like 30 kids come out riding horses. And then it kind of developed into like, okay, let's get these kids to read, because what I found one night is that Black children seem to be further behind the rest of their peers, especially compared to their white peers when it comes to the literacy rates. And I just felt like, yo, if our children are not reading, what kind of future are they going to have? And it's not even just about not reading. It's learning wanting to learn to read and actually wanting to read, like being enthusiastic about reading. Because again, I was working in childcare and the kids had like spelling tests. And I would be like, all right, it's time to study. And they were like, no. And I'm like, but you need to know how to spell, because, you know, you're failing. You know, you got 10 words, 3, 4, 5 letter words, and you aren't getting them right. So what can we do, you know, to make this fun? And so that's when I started Saddle Up and Read. And it's like, all right, you read a book, you can read to this horse, you can read on your own, and then you can ride a horse, or you can pet it, groom it. I will teach you whatever it is that you want to know. Like that is the exchange that we have going on. And then one thing I was running into was that I wasn't being able to reach the demographic I wanted to reach. And the issue with that was transportation. So it's like a lot of Black families, again, being behind because their parents are working. Like, they're working to provide for their family, and they're working until like 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. I can't be hosting this at 8 o'clock at night. Them kids got to eat. They got to sleep. So I use social media to actually get a truck and a trailer donated to the nonprofit. And I started driving to those communities and giving out books. And I took my horse with me.
Well, that's pretty dope. Yeah, that definitely needs to be highlighted more. So that's an amazing initiative for sure. I'm pretty sure you're changing perspectives and getting people excited about reading.
Oh yeah, because then people are like, wow, like, these are your horses? And I'm like, yes, they are my horses. Like, they are my horses. Those are my partners. And then for a lot of them, it's just the parents will be like, thank you for this representation. And I know one time, I will never forget this. I had these 2 little Black boys. They came, they were like 5 and 3 or 5 and 2 at the time. And they had a ball. Like, they rode my childhood horse. This is when she was alive. They spent so much time running around the barn, feeding the horses hay and all that stuff. And literally 3 months later, their mother texts me and says, they have not stopped talking about you since that visit. And it's like, that is so amazing. And all they say is that they're equestrians, they're cowboys. And they think that I own all the horses in North Carolina. So like when they're riding down the road and they see a horse, they're like, oh, that's Miss Caitlin's horse. So I just love stuff like that, because, you know, it lets them see that this is so possible for them if they want horses, or if they want a career in horses, if they want to own horses, or if they want to ride, you know, because it's not, well, up until recently, it was not seen in media often, even though for me, I grew up around other Black equestrians. It just wasn't something that you would turn on the TV or look through a magazine or step into Tractor Supply and see it. But Tractor Supply, they doing good now. They got that representation in there.
That's pretty dope. So that like they're able to see that. All right. So this question is like a little bit kind of off, but in the same realm. So when another one of your blog posts, you mentioned like growing up on a horse farm and just being around nature, you could walk around barefoot and breathe in the earth's energy through your feet. Like, could you explain what that connection to earth feels like?
Oh my goodness. So it's just amazing. So just imagine like you wake up in the morning and you just step outside and it's quiet, but not quiet in a sense of nothing is happening or nothing. You can't hear anything. It's quiet in a sense of you just hear the wind blowing, you hear birds chirping, like you don't hear all the other clutter. And just walking outside, like I'll go outside barefoot in a hot second. But it's like you just feel the energy of the earth and it relaxes you. Like a lot of times we're always on the go, always on the phone, always doing this, always looking down. But when you step outside and you're just on the earth and you just can look and see the sky, you can see the stars at night. It's just so beautiful. And I feel like that's like a high vibrational thing, to be able to connect with nature and to be like, wow, like I'm here, I'm present. And to you don't even have to intentionally meditate all the time, but it's like unintentionally meditating because you're just being there in that moment. And so when I do walk around like barefoot, I know some people will be like, oh, that's so nasty. I don't want to be stepping in horse poop. I ain't that kind of person. But out, around the yard and just feeling like the ground is cold, like it's cold, and just feeling that. And I don't know, like nothing really compares to that. Nothing at all. And then, you can't walk barefoot everywhere. Sure. Being barefoot is something else. Like I was always going to say that it's like a privilege because depending on where you are, like what might you step on? Like I don't really have to worry about stepping on glass, or like stepping on something that's going to hurt me. I'm just out there in the dirt, in the grass, feeling the dirt between my toes. And I just love it. It's really calming. That's the word. It's calming. And I have to do that even here when I'm not at the farm. I have to make time to be outside. Just, you got to soak up the sun. And when the sun not shining, you got to soak up the atmosphere of just being out in the earth.
For sure. And that's 100% true. It is a privilege because it's like people forget how connected we are to earth. And we also, a lot of us lose that connection from being kids and playing in the dirt to being adults and wearing shoes all the time and coming inside and you're not feeling the soil. You're not getting that atmosphere. So one more quick question. You mentioned also talking to your ancestors and getting information from them. How does that process work? Is it like meditation or is it like, how do you channel in and get this information?
So I really have to be intentional about just taking care of my mental health and my spiritual journey and my healing journey. And that's something I've been tapping into more. My cousin Janae has been a huge help with that. She's actually a medium. And so like whenever she makes a post or whenever I talk to her and she's like, hey, this is what you need to do, I do it. So whether that's just making time for self-care or, like taking the time to meditate and like being intentional about it. And what I mean by that is like, not just saying, all right, at this time I'm gonna do it, but like setting the intention, like, hey, I'm sitting here and I'm willing to listen to the guidance from my ancestors. And then sometimes it's just like acting on what it is that I know to do, like my intuition. So if I get an idea to do something like saddle up and read, that wasn't just me, like it was listening to my intuition. I started that in 2017 when nobody was even looking or paying attention or even supporting it. And then just acting on that led to other ideas and other opportunities. So even with doing that, because like a lot of the ideas I get, they don't just come from sitting, they come from doing. So I feel like just doing that. And I pay attention to like the moon cycle. So today is a new moon. So, and it's also February 1st, like the number 222 and all that good stuff. But just paying attention to that and paying attention to how I feel. I don't do things with other people if I don't feel my best. Just because again, energy is everything. Like before we hop on this call, I was setting the intention, like, all right, when we get up here, full of positive vibes. This is going to lead to amazing opportunities, just being really intentional and just thinking about it like that. When you start being intentional and you're just like, all right, I'm going to think positively and I'm going to do this, great things happen.
Oh, that's pretty dope. Because like normally just to end the interviews and everything, I normally ask something like, what's a valuable gem that you would share with anybody, regardless of gender, race, creed, and everything. And what you just said right there that's a valuable piece of information that people can take and apply. So, but if you do want to share one more, that'd be cool. If not, that was amazing too.
Oh, thank you. I do have one to share. Something that I always say, like, I really want people to understand that we all have a unique purpose. And I know some people, sometimes we kind of look and be like, okay, well, I haven't done anything big. And that's not what it's about. It's about just showing up, like showing up for you, being the best version of you. Because think about if I'd never started Saddle Up and Read, even though that's what I was supposed to do. If I didn't do that, like how many kids would just not even be thinking about reading, or how many parents wouldn't be thinking about helmets, or wouldn't be thinking about, oh, my child could possibly ride horses or even have a horse. Like if I didn't do that, how many people would not have had the motivation? Like my Twitter and Instagram, oh my goodness, I get so many messages and the people are like, I'm so glad I found your page. You were so positive. I do try to stay positive because we got one life, y'all. It's well spent by being ourselves, being our authentic selves, and just show up. And even like the smallest thing, like say you wore a purple shirt randomly one day. What if somebody was praying for a sign, like let somebody show up with a purple shirt and I'll stay here one more day on earth, and you come in with a purple shirt on? Like it doesn't matter. Just show up, do your best, and just be yourself.
So that's pretty dope. Hit the listeners with where to find you and anything else you want to promote.
Oh, my website, so y'all can get this coloring book, theblackcowgirl.com. I also made a sticker, which I don't have one in front of me, but I made a sticker. It's up there too. And I'm also doing presentations about Black equestrian history with libraries and homeschooling families. Eventually, I'll be inviting homeschooling families out to the farm so they can learn up close and personal with the horses. So theblackcowgirl.com, on Twitter and Instagram at the Black Cowgirl, and I have a TikTok, and it's Gooch, Gooch it's Gooch the Black Cowgirl on TikTok. So those are all my socials.
Cool. Definitely appreciate you being present, being fully in the moment, giving valuable information, giving your time and energy. And hopefully, we'll catch up more in the future. I see a lot of great things happening for you. So it'll be dope to reconnect and look back at this one and be like, whoa, look how far we both came.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. I love your platform, spreading all the goodness happening and all the funny stuff.
Sure. Thank you. And with that, dope dialogue, BlxckMonopoly, we out.